10th, 2019, to order and invite you to join with us in the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In case of fire, there are two ways to exit these chambers. To my left, you'd exit through the double doors, immediately turn left, go down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, again, turn left and go directly outside of the building. Perhaps the quickest way is to the rear of the chambers, through the double doors and down the steps. But in either case, once you're outside of the building, please walk a safe distance away from the building. Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd. Nick DeFakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Virginia Higley. Ken Nelson.
Here.
Linda DeGray. John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Alternate Petronella and Salazar will be sitting in for the absent commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we add on item 13B under administrative approval request 130 Elm Street for the request for a right-of-way, right-out curb cut on Elm Street.
Second.
Motion's made, seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Town attorney's report, there is none. Zoning enforcement officer, with the changes in the offices we had the previous terms or times, the type of report that we received tonight, and I'd ask to do it again for us, and so you have that report so that you can see what's going on, or if you want to follow it, it's there in front of you, because Rick doesn't always come to the meetings to make the report. And as we've had people come and go up in the office, things get set aside. So that's that. Any questions for him through John? None? Welcome. Okay. Approval of minutes of September 26th, the regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any additions, errors, any items? No. Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous.
One abstention.
Oh, you're abstaining? Okay.
Because I wasn't present.
Keep the secretary so she can have to write your name down. At this point in the meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments, concerns, and opinions relating to planning and zoning in Enfield. Provided you may not discuss any matter of business at this time that is already elsewhere on the agenda, any matter that's part of an open public hearing of the commission, or any matter where a decision of the commission may be pending. Is there anyone would like to address the commission under those conditions? Anyone would like to address the commission under those conditions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Bond releases, 15 Mullen Road, USA Hauling and Recycling. These were some small-scale solar energy items, if you recall, over their parking area.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve SPR 1691 for Mullen Road, the releasing of a landscaping bond, the amount of $7,100.
Is your microphone on?
Yep.
Oh,
Second.
motion's made, seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. Old business. I have to open it first. Let me get to the right place here. Yes, please take the roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, again, it's Commissioner Petronella that's sitting in for the absent commissioner. This is, for anyone here, this is the 28 Maple Avenue. It's a special permit to cover a two-family home with a conversion. It's a request to continue until October 24th. Or is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in favor or against this item? Anyone in the audience speak in favor or against the item? Anyone else, anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against the item?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept the request for continuance and table application 2946 until our October 24th, 2019 meeting.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to continue until October 24th. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Again, I drove by there and it has been cleaned up a little bit. And so I want to thank staff. 124 Pearl Street. Again, Secretary, please take the roll.
Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Richard Suzak is here.
Again, John Petronella will be sitting in for the absent commissioner. 124 Pearl Street is a special permit, and is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in favor or against the item? The request is to withdraw their application. So I'll close public hearing 2951.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept the withdrawal for public hearing 2951.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay.
2952.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to catch my breath with that. Item 2952, Secretary, please take the roll and read the legal notice.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at the regular meeting on Thursday, October 10th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application: 18 Mullen Road, special permit application to allow Kinetic Organics LLC to operate a wood products packaging operation where the former Connecticut Wood Group was located, with associated outdoor storage. CML Realty LLC owner, Kinetic Organics LLC applicant, map 16, lot 51. Charles Durin.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Alternate Petronella will be sitting in for the absent commissioner. I don't have a notice, but this was properly signed. The signs are out.
Yes.
Okay. The applicant's here. That's in your way, I'll take it on this. Is it part of it now? It's okay. Okay.
Good evening.
My name's Jay Ursary. I'm with J.R. Russo and Associates here representing the applicant and Connecticut Organics and Brennan Sheehan, who is their facilities manager for Connecticut Organics. And this is an application for a site plan modification and special permit at 18 Mullen Road. As stated in the hearing and in the notice, this is the former Connecticut Wood Group building, which you approved, I think it was 2002, if I remember correctly, or 2003. It was somewhere thereabouts. And Mr. Aarons operated the building until about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and he retired, put the building up for sale, and Connecticut Organics has since purchased the facility. They're going to operate the facility within the existing building, no additions, no really changes in the building itself. And what's going to happen is they're going to bring in bulk mulch from Connecticut Mulch right down the street, and they will be putting it in a hopper to the rear of the building, go through a conveyor into the building, and it goes through a bagging machine, and it comes out in a bag. And you'll see bagged mulch similar to what you've probably seen at Home Depot or your local garden center, where you can go and buy a bag of mulch. Those bags will be palletized on a wooden pallet, shrink wrapped, and then brought back outside. And to the rear, the area to the right, which you see on your plan sets, there's an outside storage area. And the bagged palletized material will be stored there until it's shipped out to its destination to the retailer, whether it be a garden center or Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever it might be, where the general public can come and buy this particular product. So in terms of changes to the site, the original site was approved with a small detention basin located basically directly behind the building. That's going to be eliminated. That's going to be filled in. There'll be a slight modification to the drainage system, and we moved the basin out to the left rear of the storage area, and you can see it there on the plan set. It's shown in blue. And there's a drainage swale, a grass swale, that'll carry the drainage from the parking lot area out through the swale into the basin. The basin then discharges on the down gradient side, which is to the left or to the east, and it'll sheet flow over the field area and down into a small water course, which is located in the wetland further to the east. It then goes southerly, eventually gets into a larger water course, and it's an ecosystem and wetland system that crosses Route 5 right next to Cohoes and eventually finds its way down into the Connecticut River. So it's a fairly large wetland system, and I think you probably were familiar with it when you worked on the application that was here maybe a couple of years ago for the warehouse facility that was located just to the south of this. Same piece of property, same wetland system, same water course that this eventually outlets to. The detention basin provides zero increase for all the storm events, the 2, the 5, the 10, 25, 50, and the 100-year events, so there's no increase in flows during any of the storm events. There is an increase in impervious coverage, as you can see, which is the storage area basically to the rear. And we're adding some land to this particular parcel. It was about a 3-acre parcel, I think, if I remember correctly, when Connecticut Wood Group was there. And in order to satisfy your regulation, when it comes to outside storage in this zone, you allow up to 20% outside storage in the rear yard, which we interpreted to be from the rear of the building back. And when we calculate that out, and to be able to utilize the area we needed, we had to add some land off to the east of this, which was the Connecticut Mulch property where the chip plant is located. And the total parcel area now becomes just over 10 acres, and that allows us to get this 20% rear storage area that you see there to the rear of the facility. So other than that, there are really little changes to the site itself, nothing in the front, nothing really within the drainage system, within the very immediate area of the site and the driveway. You do have a staff report that's in front of you, and I'm not sure how you want to handle this, Mr. Chairman, but we received this morning, and we went through it, and I have a couple of questions. I'm not sure, maybe whether I'm reading it correctly or don't understand it correctly, so maybe if staff wants to read the report or go through it, and then we can kind of discuss it then.
Please, go ahead.
You want me to just go right into it?
Right, I guess if you're ready to answer, Jan?
Okay, so in going through it, one of the things that we come to talks about the landscaping standards. And in this particular zone, we have a residential zone partially located across the street. And if you look at the plan, right across the street from our driveway, almost directly, is 15 Mullen Road, which you just released the bond on, which is USA Hauling. Their driveway's there, and their property line is just east of the driveway. But then further east of that is a vacant wooded parcel that is zoned residential. And based on your regulations, there would be a requirement for a buffer yard there. There is no buffer yard currently shown, and there was no buffer yard required when Connecticut Wood Group was approved. And I think staff has kind of pointed out that maybe you have some leeway here as to what you may or may not require or may modify the regulation, I guess. The property is in 490, and I actually printed out a piece of the town's GIS. It depicts this, and I'll pass it around so you can take a look. And actually, much of the property is actually wetlands. The wetlands shown on the GIS here is in green. We're located on the downside. It's number 18, the little brown thing is the building there. It's likely not only that it's in 490, but a lot of it is probably not even developable because of the wetlands. So it's our opinion that the buffer is not required, because there's really nothing to the buffer. And I think that was probably the decision that this commission made back in 2002 when they approved, or you approved, the Connecticut Wood Group. The same regulation was in place at that time, and I think it must have been decided then that there was no requirement for the buffer due to the vacant land and the extensive wetlands that's located across the street. So that was one of the things we wanted to talk to you about. And certainly the commission, I guess, and staff need to discuss that. The other items relate to, just bear with me.
So are we saying that, you know, if we required some additional buffering along the north side of your property in the extended zone that you're adding to the present property, I guess, so it's the northeast end because of the fact that there's nobody there right now, and you know, potentially you're saying that nobody could ever develop that land, that, you know, they would have to look at your storage from across the street if they did develop something there?
They wouldn't be able to see the storage, I don't think that's screened, but they would see the building. They'd see the front of the building if somebody built immediately adjacent to the westerly property line. I guess what I'm saying is, based on the GIS and the wetlands, the fact that there's no sewers there, I think it would be a difficult piece of land to develop for any kind of a residential use.
But somebody does own it,
Oh, of course.
and somebody does have developable rights if they can come up with the right
If
scheme.
they could come up with some scheme, sure.
All right, so basically, you know, it's hypothetical that it will never be developed.
I didn't say it would, I said it would be difficult. to
All right,
develop.
okay, but it can be developed ultimately.
Maybe.
All right, thank you.
Yep. So the requirement is a type B buffer yard, which is a 50-foot buffer. And in fact, you're going to see it in one of the next application that comes up that's out on Taylor Road, where we do have a 50-foot buffer yard, and we do have residential homes across the street, and we are providing the buffer because it makes sense there. In this particular case, I guess, you know, it's up to the commission how they want to interpret their regulation, whether they feel it's necessary or not necessary. So we wanted to bring that up, and it's really your decision. The next item talks about a sidewalk. And in your regulations currently,
Can you reference the section, please?
Yep, I'm going to get to it. It's actually in the parking and landscape section of your regulation, 10.10.6. Or I'm sorry, 10.10.7, parking area setbacks and landscaping standards. And within that section, it talks about a number of things, but it says that a sidewalk not less than 4 feet wide shall be constructed and may be located in either landscaped setback or street right-of-way. No sidewalk exists, so one must be added. We have almost 700 feet of frontage here. There's no sidewalks on Mullen Road anywhere. It's industrially zoned. There's a couple of residences for you further down the street. And in reading the regulation, and it's not all here. Excuse me for 1 minute.
John, while he's doing that, we had discussed possible having a pool like we do in other areas,
Fee in lieu.
a fee in lieu of. What was ever done about that? Because this is an excellent place that it could be used.
Right. I think Lori looked into that with town attorney and found that that might not be feasible. I think fee in lieu of is really only acceptable in the case of open space in subdivisions. So,
Yeah, because we do use it in open space.
right. So aside from that, I think we would have to look into changing the language of the regulation. And I believe past regulations, when we looked at like previous adopted regulations, we found that this was actually changed to make it not, or to make it more strict. So we can change it, we can go back and find the language from what it used to be and propose a text amendment.
But I mean, this is exactly where it would be, because he's right on, there's no sidewalks on the whole road on both either side.
I guess, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the other thing I might add here, in reading this, and that certainly it's your regulation and you need to interpret it, but my partner Dana and I read it 2 or 3 times today, and the way it's written and the section that it happens to be in, the 10.10.7, parking area setbacks and landscaping standards. And as we go through it, it's Section A, landscape setback requirements excluding driveway crossings, landscaped areas adjacent to streets shall be provided as follows. And it's talking about parking spaces. If you have more than 3 spaces but less than 25, you have to be 5 feet back from the road. If you have 25 or more and less than 100, you got to be 8 feet back. If you have over 100, you have to be 10 feet back. And you need a landscape area that shall be planted with ground cover and canopy trees for each 50 feet of frontage. And then it says a 4-foot sidewalk shall be constructed in either the landscape setback or street right-of-way. It seems to be indicating that this is in conjunction with a parking lot that's out front running parallel with the road. So if I have a parking lot and I'm set back from the street, I need to provide landscaping between the road and that parking lot, and I need to provide a sidewalk, because it's in the parking area and landscaping section of your regulation. Not as in your subdivision regulations, which obviously this isn't a subdivision, where it says, well, sidewalks are required along the frontage of the road within a new subdivision. That I understand. I'm not sure that this regulation, the way it's being interpreted, is the way that it was meant when it was written.
Go ahead if you want to.
I mean,
What year was the building built?
2003, 2004, I don't remember exactly. Our plan says 2002, so it was sometime shortly after that. I'm going to say 2003.
So I know the building, and it's a newer building.
It is.
And the building currently doesn't have any of these issues that he's discussing right now, and it had to have been approved when it was built. And I have to agree, there are 0 sidewalks down Mullen Road. I also agree with the fee in lieu, but they say that's not going to happen, so. And as far as doing a buffer along the road, I'd be concerned about the traffic coming up over the hill.
Yeah,
And, you know, you're creating a sightline issue with the amount of truck traffic that goes down Mullen Road now. I don't know that that's going to be a positive. And it is surrounded by wetlands or other commercial buildings or properties. So, you know, if a resident were to buy that residential lot across the street, you know, it's kind of buyer beware. They know what's there now. They can look right across the street and see the building. We have the same issue, you know, out on Fletcher Road. People keep buying a house and there's a body shop across the street and they come and complain about it 6 months later after they buy the house. Well, it was there, you know, and you know, they're sitting here now, nobody's doing anything, and we can't speculate about something somebody may or may not do 100 years from now when we have an applicant sitting in front of us. So I'll wait to hear what the public says, but I understand where he's going with this, and I have to agree. If the building was built in 1900, that'd be one thing, but the building's less than 20 years old, and it was under these regulations.
probably.
Well, I guess just to interject again for a minute, and this doesn't relate to the sidewalks, but the buffer itself, the buffer regulation was in place at that time, and the reason I remember it, and you'll remember as well, is we did a subdivision, an industrial subdivision called Peerless Way, a little bit before that, and that required a 100-foot buffer because we were directly adjacent, not across the street, to, I forget the name of the street, off to the east of that, where we required 100 feet along the back of those residential properties. And it's the same regulation, it hasn't changed. And your regulation, I remember commenting at the time, is very specific and comprehensive. You have an A, B, C, and I think there may be a D, buffer yard requirements with types of trees and shrubs that need to be included. And it was there, and we didn't show it at the time, and apparently it must have been the decision of the commission that it wasn't necessary or wasn't required.
Well, I'm sure Jen is making lists of that, and we can make exemptions possible or whatever the commission decides when we get to the final closing.
Okay, well, those were the two areas of the report and the resolution that I had some questions on or some concern about, I guess. I
Well,
read them and read through the
generally, at the end,
regulations.
we'll
and-
ask you if you agree with them or not to agree.
Okay.
And you can just remind us of them at that time.
All right, so, well, that pretty much concludes the presentation. I didn't go into a lot of specifics about the drainage. We have full drainage plans, drainage reports that were all submitted. The staff, I know, has reviewed them. And if anybody on the commission has any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Okay, Ken,
I have one more question.
go ahead.
The property that in question, are you going to be creating some sort of an access road between the two properties, or are all the trucks going out to Mullen Road and back in?
No, the trucks have to go out to Mullen Road. That would be a wonderful thing. We would like to be able to do that, but there are other properties between the chip plant building, if you will, and Connecticut Mulch that they don't control and don't own, so it's not possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Go.
Because what's the composition of your storage area? Is it going to be a gravel? Is it going to be bituminous? Or, you know, what are you going to be putting there to?
It's likely going to be millings,
Millings.
bituminous millings.
So will it be of the, you know, will it be a stable area so that
Yes.
if the trucks are going through it, you know, in the wintertime or the spring or whatever, and it gets really mucky and muddy, they're not going to be, because I've seen some of those trucks that you guys use to move your wares around in, and they're not your standard little pickup truck. And,
Yeah, there actually won't be any trucks within the storage area. The way it works is the palletized product comes out of the plant, and the pallets are picked up with a machine that's similar to I'm going to call it a spider, and I think that's what they call it in the construction industry, which you've all seen on the back of the Kelly Fredette truck when they go to deliver a load of lumber or something of that nature. There's a machine that sits right on the back of the truck. It's a three-wheeled machine. So it's kind of like a forklift, if you will. So they pick up the pallets and they move them around within the storage area. So there won't be any trucks back there. But the surface itself would still be a milling bituminous surface. It's not going to be gravel.
So that storage area will never have any free organics that aren't packaged.
No, it won't.
So because I'm concerned about, obviously the fact that if you start storing materials in that kind of a media that can absorb, anything that rains upon it and gets washed into the area, you could start creating an ecological, disaster. So
Yeah, that's a good
and I
point.
think that we need to put that in one of our conditions that, only packaged items can be stored in that rare area.
Yeah, and that's,
Because the other thing is that going to create an environment for little critters to hide out and stay warm and give them something to eat in the wintertime? And how are you going to sort of patrol that kind of a situation so that you don't get an accumulated population of critters?
Well, I think that's something that Brennan and his crew would certainly be very attuned to, because if we have mice or whatever that are in there and they're trying to eat through the bags to get their product, then when they go to sell their product and they bring it to the store and the bags have holes in them and the product's falling out, they're not going to be able to sell their product. So there would have to be some work done on their part to make sure that we don't get any little varmint or whatever running around in there that are damaging the product. Although it is double bagged, if you will, so it's in a bag, and then it's also shrink wrapped around the pallet itself, around the bags, to keep them steady on the pallet itself. So it is double wrapped, but certainly that's something that they're going to have to make sure doesn't happen, or it's going to ruin their product.
Because one last item, in terms of when these large trucks bring the wares from the neighbors over, I'm just sort of looking at, is the turnaround radius for them to actually turn around, or do they have to do like a K-turn, like a 15,000 K-turn
No,
to
they
get
can
out of
actually
there?
turn around now. When the building was originally designed, there is a loading dock on the back of the building that's suitable for tractor trailers. So we'd be utilizing that same area. The trucks will come in, offload the material in that location right next to the hopper. There's a concrete pad there. It's picked up with a skid steer, dumped into the hopper, and it goes into the building.
Okay, so basically they would pull in front of your concrete pad.
Yep.
I guess maneuver to the west of that pad, then pull forward, and then have to back towards the pad to dump their wares?
Correct. Yep,
So-
they'd
so
be
they-
able to spin right around and
Right.
dump and go back up.
Right, so
Yep.
they would have to do some kind of a maneuver in order to get there.
Yeah, they have to turn around, yes.
Right. So hopefully that they'll be good drivers. So, all right, thank you.
Mary? Okay, John.
Yeah, question. I'm not seeing any site lighting for the storage area. Is that correct?
There is no site lighting in the storage area. There is no proposed additional site lighting. There's lights on the building. And this operation basically is a daytime operation. It would be 7 o'clock until 5 o'clock, I believe, Monday through Friday.
That was my next question,
Yep.
yeah. So specific to first shift operation, so
Yes.
somewhat abutting or near a residential area with, was it King
Yeah,
Court?
it is, actually.
There is a buffer area between, I think.
I can tell you what that is. We actually looked at that because, again, there's buffer requirements, and my original thought was that we're bordering residential to the south.
Yes.
But actually, this piece that was the subject of the application you saw a couple of years ago actually comes right back out and goes back out to Route 5, and there's 170 feet between our southerly property line and the back lines of the residences that are on King Court. This is currently all wooded. So that's a good point. That was something that actually I thought of when we first got involved in this, and I thought, well, we're not going to be able to do that because we need a buffer. But I had forgotten and didn't realize that there is some industrially zoned land there that is currently wooded, and it gives us a 170-foot buffer to the backs of those houses on King Court.
You going again, Ken? Yeah,
Did
go ahead.
Mary have to go?
Oh,
Just one question along with Commissioner Suzak. So the trucks are going to come in loaded, and
Yes.
are they dumping on the ground outside?
On a concrete pad outside, correct?
Outside?
Yes.
So that material will not stay overnight?
That material will not stay there. It'll be loaded into the hopper, processed and bagged. If they were to leave it out, and let's say, for example, we had a rainstorm or they had a snowstorm, whatever it might be, now the product is wet, it's heavier, so it's cleaned product, it's drier product. So when you go down the street and you see the mulch that they're making, the product would come clean and dry out of the mulch pile. It's not going to come out of the top of the pile. If it's wet, it's going to be into the pile where they have the drier material.
Right. I just want to make sure, because there was no raw product stored outside. That's what you guys had said, so
No.
I want to make sure you're covered.
No, we don't want to leave it outside.
Moisture is a big problem in the bagging industry. You can't have the moisture and have the bag sit around for a long period of time. Mold develops, and then you try to sell it off to the customer, and it
Okay.
creates all kinds of issues.
Thank you.
any other question? Yes.
So, staying on the subject of the trucks, I drove by there today, and I noticed that, I assume because of the recent rains we've had, there was a lot of actual mud and debris out on the street. And I assume that's because of the trucks coming in and out. And now you're going to increase the volume of traffic coming out of the other property, not yours. I didn't see anything out of this property, but the other one where you're going to be getting the material. So have you given any thought to the problems that you may be creating with the trucks, the increased volume of traffic, the mud on the street?
That's 100% paved lot.
Yeah, that's,
Dirt.
No, not this one, the one where they're going to be bringing the material from.
The material already comes out of that building. We're discussing this one. You can't try to go after another property.
Well, no, I'm looking at the volume of traffic that's going to be coming out.
Yeah. I don't know if I have an answer to your question, although I'll just comment. The driveway that comes in and out of Connecticut Mulch is paved all the way in to beyond the office. It's probably, I don't know, 700 feet long
Yeah.
or somewhere thereabouts. I was there today, and I didn't see any mud.
Because I was there yesterday, and I noticed the same thing because I came down the road, and I looked at the building, and I had to turn around somewhere. So I turned around
In that driveway?
in the Connecticut Mulch driveway, and I says, "Wow, look at all this dirt." You know, it's just because it rained. But now that I'm thinking about it, if there is again a relatively wet period of time, or else what happens is that whatever comes out of that Connecticut Mulch lot doesn't get washed away because of the fact that there's too much, of that debris material sitting there that, potentially it will definitely increase that, contamination or dirt or whatever it happens to be that those trucks carry when they do leave that property. So I would concur with Commissioner Salazar that, that it is a problem because, like you said, I was just there yesterday and I noticed the same thing when I turned around, that everything was clean until I reached that driveway for the Connecticut Mulch.
I was there today, and I didn't see anything. Maybe I missed it, maybe I wasn't paying attention. I was there an hour ago.
Right, the trucks are leaving Connecticut Mulch already, and they're doing this operation, I'm sure, but it's just not here, it's someplace else. So the material's been coming in and it's going out somewhere. So they're just bringing it to a building closer to them. So the traffic is gonna stay the same, if I'm correct, at Connecticut Mulch.
same at Connecticut Mulch, and in overall, it'll reduce because you can carry more volume in bags per truck than you can bulk. So hypothetically, the truck traffic would reduce, not increase.
Right, so we're not changing anything for Connecticut Mulch other than where they drop it. The trucks are already carrying the material out, so that mud that's there today would have been there, it'll be there 10 years from now. Even if you deny this application, it's not affecting Connecticut Mulch, and we're not hearing
Well, they're
Connecticut.
calling their attention to the fact that they could do something even now.
We hear your concern, and we'll take a look at it.
That's basically all. Okay. Would you explain on the millings, how do you put that down?
Well, the ideal way to do it is to bring it in right after it's milled. In other words, when they're out on a job and they're doing a paving job and they're milling and they're shooting it right into the back of the truck, hopefully it's a nice warm day. The ideal solution is to bring it down, lay it down, spread it, and roll it. And if it's warm enough and the material is good milled material, many, many times it's hard to tell the difference between that and an actual paved driveway. That's the ideal way to do it.
There's no leaching of the oils out because you do have, as you said, a lot of water running around up
It's
there.
recycled material, it's used all over the state of Connecticut.
Yes, I understand that, and I know you have some up above also, but I'm just concerned with the water amount that you have out there. And as you say, down below where it runs, and it's all sheet flow.
It's sheet flowing off through what we call a biostrip between
Right.
the basin and the swale that's all grass.
All goes down through the back of King Court and
Yep.
all the properties through there. I was just wondering what precautions or anything were taken as far as what may be leached from the millings.
As far as deep is concerned, it's clean fill.
Guess we can't beat deep then. Any further questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you said something about a bioswale. Isn't it designed to gather impurities before they get into the waterway?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, good. Anything further from the commission? Now, the property, are you purchasing the property to the left where you're rebuilding the swale?
That's correct. That property will be transferred over to the same LLC that just purchased the former Wood Group building.
So I understand that it makes the piece of property left is going to be, well, yeah, it'd have to be grandfathered. It's not going to be buildable or, I lose the word. What's the word I want? It's not being an approved lot because you're cutting it down in half. Is that right, Jen?
Well, it actually would be considered a lot line reconfiguration. I think what you're thinking is, are we creating a new lot or does it need a subdivision approval?
Right.
So when we take a piece of land, a large portion of land, and we take a piece of it and we combine it with a piece that's next to it, we would call it a reconfiguration. So we have 2 lots today. When we get done, we're going to have 2 lots tomorrow. One will be a little smaller, the other one's going to be a little bigger. So we haven't created a new lot, we just essentially moved a lot line and transferred some property.
Okay, that's not what I had, okay.
Just along those same lines, in terms of if this is one property, each property gets to have one building on it, you can expand your building, but you wouldn't be able to put a separate building totally isolated from the building that's there right now.
Actually, in the industrial zone, you can have multiple buildings and they do not have to be attached.
That would be with a special permit, though. So it would still come back to you.
Right.
I knew there was
In a
some,
residential zone, you'd be correct. You could only have one residential structure on a given lot, but in industrial and commercial, it's a little different.
I knew there was a problem, or it would be, all right. Okay, if you're all set on the commission, I'll go to the public. Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the public would like to speak in favor or against the application? Hearing none,
I guess I
Alright.
just have one more question. In terms of, looking at the site, right now, there is a tree line that's directly behind the building, and there's all grasslands to the east of the existing property. So basically what you're doing is you're removing all the existing vegetation and the trees that are, some old growth trees and older growth trees. And basically you're not putting anything back with that removal of all those trees.
Correct.
So, yeah, and again, looking at the buffer that we're putting up there, when you look at the amount of volume and surface area of trees that are being removed and nothing's being put back, to me doesn't seem to be a good idea. I think that, I think that the buffer would be a good idea just to enhance the tree growth and the tree belt, for the amount of trees that are being removed. I just wanted to say that.
Well, that would be when we get down there at the time.
The buffer from Mullen Road is what you're referring to. So the aesthetic pleasing of a hayfield, buffering that, the aesthetics of the hayfield?
Well, I think it's a matter of principle in terms of if you take down 150 trees and you don't put any back, what have you done? You've taken down 150 trees and you haven't put any back. If you take down 150 trees and you put 15 back, at least you made an effort to, not denude and totally destroy an ecosystem that might be there for future considerations.
Mr. Chair, there was just one thing that I wanted to bring to your attention.
go ahead.
I know we did go over it, but I just wanted to clarify why I put in the staff report the sidewalk, because there isn't a provision in the regulations right now to waive that. I know you've approved facilities in the past without requiring them to put in that sidewalk, but I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that there, unlike the buffer yard, there isn't really a waiverability of it in the regulations. So you can choose to make the conditions that you want to put on this, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
We just waived the sidewalks for Camaradas.
What? I'm sorry.
That was a different day.
I didn't hear your comment.
We just waived the sidewalks for Camerata truck parts on Shaker Road.
Right, yeah.
That was a month and a half ago.
Yeah. Well,
gotta get the regulations
It does
straight.
seem foolish because the town manager pulled some out that weren't being used. And if we can't have pay in funds in lieu of, which we could build sidewalks maybe on Elm Street or wherever they're needed. I don't know, we're sort of hamstrung on it.
And as far as the removal of the trees, you have to remove the trees to build the structure. The waiver of the buffer, I would normally agree with you, Rich, but in this case, you're going to be limiting the sight line, especially with the hill right there coming over Mullen Road.
Let's have it, because I've got to open this to the public again, and we can do this after I close the. Okay, again, since we had discussion, anyone in the audience, again, would like to speak in favor or against the application? Again, anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application? Any reason to keep it open, gentlemen, ladies?
Could I make one more comment, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So before you get into your discussion and you close the hearing, and I can't say anything else, if we are required to put in a sidewalk, are we talking about a sidewalk in front of the building area that's developed, or are we talking about a sidewalk that's 700,
Property line to property line.
690 feet long? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
I believe it, but my understanding, yep, okay. Again, is everybody finished, please? Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Then I should, the pleasure of the commission, do you want me to close it? Any reason to keep it open? Then I'll close public hearing 28-952. Is it 52? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Then we shall move on if you aren't going to make a motion. or-
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion for the approval of the resolution to approve public hearing number 2952 as prepared by the Planning Department dated October 10th with the 33 conditions listed with some additional discussion on additional conditions that might be added or removed.
Second.
Does now, your motion, you said something about being added or removed.
Right, in terms of, I indicated how many conditions are here right now, and there's 33 as listed in the draft resolution, and the thing is, if we're going to have a discussion as to whether we're going to require some of the requirements for the site-specific conditions, we might add some and we might remove some, so the total number will change.
Well, I think before you better withdraw that, because we should take them before you make the motion to do that, and take them out prior to that. In other words, you have some that are listed here and some that you wish to add. You should do it prior to making the motion you just made.
All right, well, I think you wanted a motion.
Wanted a motion in order for.
Yeah, not that one.
All right, I'll withdraw my motion, and if we can start a discussion
I
as
need
to,
withdraw.
Withdraw the second.
Okay.
so,
Now,
if,
if you wish to take some of those off, make a motion to remove item number whatever it is.
well, basically, I want to add one for sure, in terms of, I think during our discussions, we indicated that, any storage that was going to occur at the back of the building was going to be package storage. It wouldn't be any loose bulk storage. So that, in that sense, we have to add at least one condition to the conditions that we have there right now.
I second that.
The motion's made and seconded to add a condition regarding storage. One at a time. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Is there any opposed? It's unanimous. Do you have a motion? Or one to
I want to
withdraw?
add a condition, the operating hours being 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. I want to make sure that's a condition
Are you
because of the
you
operating
on?
hours.
Your most,
Yes, I'm on.
it is, it didn't look, okay.
Hard to hear.
What days?
Why?
Her motion was concerning time.
Yes.
Right, and I'm asking, why would we limit this business to particular hours?
Because of the fact that there's no lighting at the back of the property for them to be able to operate, and they explained that they would only be doing it in the daylight hours, and that because they're being respectful of the residences behind them about the traffic.
Report.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it don't get dark till 8 o'clock during the summer, and hopefully our businesses thrive, and maybe someday they put a second shift on.
They actually, these are the hours that they said that they would be operating during. I didn't make these hours
You can
for
come
them.
in and
I
change
can't
them.
support that condition, but
I'll second that.
Motion's made and seconded. Again, it's a limitation of time from 9 to 5.
Se-
9 a.m.
It's-
to 5.
I think it was 7.
Seven.
9 to 7.
7 a.m., I think is when they started.
7, I'm sorry. Well, that's when the trucks in the town get out too. 7 to 5 is that the time?
Correct.
All in favor?
I mean, I'd be in favor.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And opposed? 1. No abstentions.
go ahead. Rick.
Any other omissions or?
Well, I just want to make sure that we address the type B buffer that we said should be added to the final plans. And again, I will reiterate my reasoning anyways, in terms of there's a significant amount of trees that are in the back of that lot right now that are going to be totally removed. And, I think that in the essence of keeping our regulations sort of consistent, that we require that buffer to be placed so that at least we're replacing some of the trees that were being removed. We're not going to come nearly as close to replacing as many trees as being removed, but at least we're going to have a minor percentage, so that, that would be my position, that we keep this condition in there.
Can we set them back from the driveway?
Oh, yeah, I think we could, the thing is, I think the buffer can be as far as back as we want,
I
but it's...
don't mean back this way, I mean down Mullen Road both ways, so as the truck
Well,
pulls out.
I think that what happens is we're talking 700 feet of buffer area. So basically, and we require one tree for every 50 feet or something, I think. So
I
so
think
basically, they're going to be...
We have a person that goes out anyhow and can do the placement of where they want the trees.
Well,
Does Rick do that?
he more marks the trees to be removed in wetlands, not necessarily dictating where trees should go. That's really something the commission would need to decide, as the commission is the one with the discretion. When it comes to the buffers, the type B buffer does require 3 canopy trees, 9 understory or evergreen trees, and 12 shrubs every 100 feet. And they said they have 600.
So we can have shrubs
One
out
tree
there.
every
Oh.
50 feet.
Oh, I
That's a
thought-
lot of
that's-
plantings. That's
So-
when,
Well, I think that, and again, I think that we need to at least have some kind of a planting system to occur there.
They've gotta put-
I would
should
agree
replace
with,
some of-
even lower trees with the higher trucks, they'll be able to see over them, but small trees grow up to big trees. So, if you did, like you said, every 50 feet with a tree, or some sort of ornamental, smaller tree, let the developer pick the tree, because we've had problems with the past with the certain soils out on Mullen Road, the trees are dying. And this commission is dictating what trees to put in, and they don't survive in the soil. At least if they pick their own trees and they die, they're responsible for them, to replace them within the year. We all know it's been a problem out there. So by letting them choose a tree that's suitable for the soil that will survive, if that tree dies, it's on them instead of on us.
We can always choose maples.
There is,
They-
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
Go ahead.
interrupt. Oh, sorry. There is a condition, number 13, saying that 15 other trees must be designated on the final plans to comply with 10.10.7.
I thought it was
And
there.
there is an item in 10.10.7 that says landscaped areas shall be planted with ground cover and 1 canopy tree for each 50 feet of frontage. And so they have, I believe, 5
What you
there,
want.
or 2, or 5 are shown in front of the building and 2 along the frontage, so then 13 would be required overall.
Well, again, I think that we can tolerate a little more trees to buffer the building itself. I think that,
We shouldn't have the discussion. We can have that after I get the thing squared away. But we're getting into a lot of go back and forth. You don't have a second to your motion yet, I don't believe. And you want additional trees, then,
Well, what I'm saying is that we maintain it. We don't need a second to the motion because it's there right now. I'm saying we're not going to be removing it. So I'm just making.
that's not a motion.
Well, I didn't make a motion. I just said I'm in favor of keeping that
Well, it's
condition.
there.
She's saying under a different condition is what you wanted, the every 50 feet, correct?
Right.
Right, so if we remove the buffer that we're talking about, Rich, you're still getting, under another condition, your trees every 50 feet, ground cover, stuff like that. It's just not under that buffer condition.
So you'd
If I'm
make,
correct at what you're,
And,
what you
and
wanted.
right, and I think that again, what's the number of that section?
10.10.7.
So it's okay, 10 point. So that's the one we just looked at. And that's where I think I saw the 7. Okay, okay.
Mr. Chair? Oh,
no, let him finish.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
take care of
Okay,
trees.
so in that sense, I would say that what we would like to do is, so is 13 part of that 10.7? So, or is-
Right, yes, condition 13 says that the landscaping of 10.10.7 must be met.
10.10.7, it's right there
Right.
already.
Right.
All right. So, but I would like to keep the type B buffer for the original building area, not necessarily for the expanded building area. Because the original building should have had that type B buffer in its requirements. So, and maybe what I can do is I'd like to see that section be, not for the expanded with the added areas, but that particular buffer be provided at the building itself. So I guess in that sense, I would like to make a motion that we modify, I guess, condition number 12, that the type B buffer yard must be added to the final plans only in the area of the original building plot, the original building, I guess, building lot, frontage, so that we don't have to expand it the other 500 feet, but we have it for that particular location. So that,
Okay, that is on modifying item 12 to have a type B buffer yard only for the original building lot.
Anybody second it?
Anybody, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Now, any discussion on that one?
I guess I have a question for Jen or one of the other commissioners. Are the power lines on that side of the street or the other side? Because that would change what.
CLMP will have a side, you're not gonna put an elm tree under the power lines, that's for
Right.
sure.
I honestly am not sure.
I almost thought I saw CLMP markings on that side of the street on the plans. So,
Well, they'll have to keep them low, they're gonna.
The type of tree-
That's not up to us, that'll be up to the developer on how high his trees will go, because CLMP will stop them anyway. Any further discussion on that particular motion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Any opposed? 1, 2, 3. Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the sidewalk requirement as we've done in past applications, and we've set a precedence, and in this case, there are no sidewalks on either side of the street, on the entire length of the street. So it would be actually a safety issue to put sidewalks there because they end up having to dump out onto Mullen Road with no crosswalks to anything. I mean, it's
second.
pointless.
But I don't think we can
Motion's made and
waive.
seconded. Well,
Can we technically waive?
We have in the past.
well, we just don't require them. The fact is, until the planning department or the town attorneys or somebody comes up with a fee instead of, or some way around it, it's sort of foolish to go piece by piece on a street that doesn't have any at all. We did that, and then the town manager was pulling them out, so.
And they
Right.
just redid Mullen Road, so you know the town's not putting any in anywhere.
My problem isn't with the sidewalk itself, it's with the
Well,
language
that's
of
what we used to do.
waiving,
We
of
got
waiving
going-
it. I don't know if we can,
I agree.
I think
Mary,
that's what the
but
issue.
we've set past precedents
Yeah,
recently, so it's kind of hard for us to change midstream.
Unless the council can come up with something, or they have legal rights to it, I don't know. Okay, so the motion was made and seconded? All right, all in favor? 7-0-0. Anything further? Go back to the main motion to approve with the modifications.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution for public hearing 2952, dated October 10th, that's prepared by the planning department with, I guess we added 2 additional conditions, so it would
Just
be,
leave it as amended, and Jen.
Okay, as amended.
Jen has it.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve as amended. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We got through that one. Okay.
this is going to be a hard one.
Well, it's the only way you can do it is piece by piece.
Right. No, I think we did a good job.
There you
I
go.
feel very good about it. So I have to do,
Thank you.
Okay, please, public hearing 2953 regarding 17 North Maple Street. Secretary, please take the roll and read the legal notice.
the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing at the regular meeting of Thursday, October 10th, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2953, 17 North Maple Street, special permit application for an in-law apartment. Michael and Michelle Lizzie, owners. Michael Lizzie, applicant, map 83, lot 89, R33 zone. Charles Duran.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Okay, alternate Petronella is sitting in for the absent commissioner. Are the applicants here?
Yes.
Okay, please, sir, if you'll give your name and address for the record, and explain to the commission what it is you are proposing to do.
My name is Michael and Michelle Lizzie. We are here
Give
requesting
your address, sir.
15 North Maple Street, I'm sorry, 17 North Maple Street.
Thank you.
We're here requesting a special permit to add an in-law apartment to our home on 17 North Maple.
Questions for the applicant from the commission? Yep.
Because just reading your profile that we have here, in terms of, it was originally a three-family house that was converted to a single-family house with the requirement that you did not totally finish your renovation. You had a third apartment in the back that you just sort of left as, because it was originally a smaller kind of in-law apartment, and you just left it as a storage area. So basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to take that storage area that you left in the back of the house and convert it into what its original intentions might have been as an in-law apartment.
That's right. It was constructed as an apartment. In fact, we rented the apartment for many years, and the apartment was vacant. We left it vacant. And now we have, my mother-in-law is 88 years old, and we'd like to have her living with us in the same building.
Okay, so you're not really going to be making any modifications to the building other than enhancing its livability?
The exterior of the building will remain exactly the same.
Correct.
The inside, we have work to do. Yes.
Right. But so basically, it is going to stay like it is, and you're just going to incorporate it into the body of the building itself?
Exactly, yes.
All right, thank you.
With the exception of a handicap ramp.
Any other questions? Yes, Ken.
At this point, you don't want to make it a legal apartment? So in the future use, you could rent it? Since it was already an existing apartment, I mean, an in-law limits you to family members only, where if you were to go for the full apartment, you know, if things change down the road, you could actually rent it without having to come back. And an in-law is only good every year as you keep renewing.
Understood.
You know, and that would eliminate all of that for you.
That was our original intent.
Yeah.
Concern is the stipulations that go along with that. And I don't know that we want to incur the additional,
We're just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah.
just
You know, we need to get her in there.
Okay.
as soon as possible, we'd like to get her.
Okay.
But thank you for the suggestion.
Anything
I mean,
further?
unless they make it easy, you know.
Well, it's 800 square feet, correct?
No, it's 400 square
Oh,
feet.
my bad. Sorry.
I mean, it was an apartment for years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always, but
Yes.
So actually, my question is about your last statement. I'm looking at the notes that were prepared, and it says that it's going to be 380 square feet, which doesn't meet the minimum according to what I'm reading here, but you said it was 400
400
square feet.
It's 20 by 20.
It reads that it was 20 by 19, I guess. Did you take a look at this, or do they get a copy of this?
so.
Does an in-law have to meet an in-law doesn't have to meet the 800 square feet.
No,
No.
it's 400, 400.
Right.
Seriously?
Measuring the outside foundation is 20 by 20. I don't, if it's 20 by 19, so be it. That's, we still like to put an in-law in that space.
If I may, we normally do approve things from the outside measurements. So if that is accurate, the 20 by 20, then it would meet the requirement.
I'm good.
Everybody set? Any in the, excuse me. Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against the application? Before they do, have you received a copy of the conditions, and do you have any problems with them?
No, actually, we believe our application meets or exceeds the requirements.
Okay. Last call, anyone in the audience will speak in favor or against the application? Any reason, gentlemen and ladies, to keep it open? All right, then shall close 2953.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve public hearing 2953 for an in-law apartment located at 17 North Maple Street, and with memo dated and put together by our planning department with 21 conditions, dated October 10th, 2019.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? No abstentions. Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with it. Okay. 2954, 0 Taylor Road. Secretary, please take the roll and read the legal notice.
The Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold public hearing at the regular meeting on Thursday, October 10th, 2019, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 820 Enfield Street, Enfield, Connecticut, concerning the following application. Public hearing 2954, 0 Taylor Road, special permit application for a new building with associated parking, drainage, and outdoor storage. Top Notch LLC owner, PDS Engineering and Construction, Dan Jodis, applicant, map 100, lot 11-2, I-1 zone. Charles Duran.
Here.
Charles Ladd.
Here.
Nick Lefakis.
Here.
Mary Scott.
Here.
Ken Nelson.
Here.
John Petronella.
Here.
Guillermo Salazar.
Here.
And Richard Suzak is here.
Thank you. Applicants here? Return engagement, huh?
Yes.
Okay, if you will, the name and address, please, for the record.
Jay Ursary, J.R. Russo and Associates here representing PDS Engineering and Construction, who is the applicant on this project. This is Tim Mulcahy here with me from PDS.
Bloomfield, Connecticut.
So this is an application for site plan approval and again, a special permit because we have some storage to the rear. This property is on Taylor Road. It's on the west side of Taylor Road, just south of Moody. It's currently an agricultural field. It was a parcel that was split off in a free cut from a larger piece that included an industrial building on Moody and some more agricultural land. So there's other lands here that could be developed. But this particular building is one that PDS will be constructing. It's going to be an office space and some garage commercial space, as well as some outside storage located to the rear, which will be fenced in 6-foot chain link fence with privacy slats for screening. We have sewer, water, gas, all the utilities are available here on Taylor Road. This particular parcel grades away from Taylor Road or downhill, so it's lower than the street. So this particular piece requires a sanitary sewer grinder pump in order to get the sewage from the location at the building back up into the road. So it's a little different. It's not gravity, but we're going to have to pump the sewage up. It also has an oil-water separator because we have a garage section within this particular building, so there's floor drains in the building. WPCA and Connecticut Deep require the separator when we have a floor drain located within the building. So that is in this particular building package as well. Those are both located to the north side of the building itself. The access obviously comes right off of Taylor here on the southeasterly side. We come in the driveway. We've got parking located up here in the front. Handicap spaces here, main entrance to the building, some more parking located here on the side. And while we're talking about parking, if you go into your staff report,
You need the hand mic to the TV. We have a lot of interested people out there.
while we're talking about parking, if you go into your staff reports, there was a comment made, it might have been by the fire marshal, I don't remember, indicating that we have 15 employees, we have 15 parking spaces. Your current zoning regulation requires a little less than that, and he wondered whether that was going to be enough, whether to be visitors to the site and so forth. And Tim has told me that they do occasionally get someone coming in here that would be a visitor, so they may need 2 or 3 more spaces, and we have plenty of room to add that down here along the side. So we will be adding probably 3 more parking spaces that'll be located along the southerly side of the building to give us a few extras. The drainage system for this particular site is a formal catch basin and piping system. There's one located here in the front, another one on the side. We come down here again along the side of the parking, one back here. All comes together, comes through a manhole, into the basin. We have a sediment forebay, and then we have a detention basin and water quality basin that's located here to the rear of the property. There was a drainage report that, again, was submitted with the package. I think Jen went through that in her report. There's reductions in outflow during all the storm events, so there's no increase in runoff leaving the site. This particular basin will outlet here. Everything grades back to the west, and it eventually gets into a wetland that's located in a low area to the west of this particular piece of property. The just going to leave that there for a second. This particular location is directly across the street from residentially zoned land. So we have houses right across the street on Taylor Road. And your buffer requirement does apply here. So it is a buffer yard. It's a 50-foot requirement for buffer. And I think Jen actually read you what was required there just a bit ago in the last application as to the number of canopy trees, the number of deciduous trees, the number of shrubs, the number of evergreen trees. We have provided all of that here in the front in terms of landscaping and screening. It's 50 feet back and gives you the buffer requirement that is required with your zoning regulations. So we're buffered to the properties across the street. Again, in your staff report, we talk about sidewalks. Same thing happens here. We've got a requirement to put sidewalks along the front of Taylor Road. There are no sidewalks on this side of Taylor Road. There's no sidewalks across the street here on Taylor Road. And Dana Steele, my partner, was working on this, and I think, and I don't know whether he talked to Jen or John Cabibbo, because there is sidewalks on Taylor Road south of this, all the way down to Hazard Avenue, down to the school. It's all sidewalks. There are more sidewalks to the north of this. And the question came up as to, they just redid the road here not long ago. Why didn't they extend the sidewalk up to Moody Road to make the connectivity? And the answer was that they went to town council and talked about it, and they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to put the sidewalks in. They didn't. There are no sidewalks across the street from here. They end just to the south of this site, and there is no connectivity up to Moody Road, and there's no sidewalks at all on the west side. So again, that's something I think that you may want to discuss in your deliberations as to whether a sidewalk's necessary here. The other issue with the walk at this particular location is that it grades off fairly steeply from the edge of the road, so it falls off. And if we build a sidewalk here, what's going to happen is during storm events in the winter, we have snow melt, the water is going to run off, it's going to run across the sidewalk, and it's going to freeze. There's no curbs on this side of the road at all, anywhere on Taylor Road. It's only curbed on the other side where you have a sidewalk. Typically, where you have walks, you do have curbs. Here, there are no curbs. So we may want to discuss that when you get to deliberations. Our client would love to not have to put the sidewalk in, but it's up to you. So in moving on and taking a look through here, let's take a look at the architectural.
I'm getting there.
We have a floor plan. I'm not going to go into that unless you would like to. Let's just take a look here at the elevations itself of the building. So we've got a metal building. It's got a pitched roof, and we have a split-face block skirt along the front of the building, which you can see here that's shown in this area. And that particular skirt encompasses the office area. The office area is much lower. It wraps around onto the south side, also wraps around onto the north side, and covers the entire office, which is the front section of the building. The rear section is higher. Again, all metal skin. I think we've got a color sample here to show you, and I'll pass that around here in a second. White pass doors, white garage doors. South side, 3 bay doors into the mechanics area. West side, another bay door that gets you out into the storage area, which is surrounded by fence and screening. And pass doors only on, actually there are none on the north side, so only doors on the south side of the building and the front of the building. So let me get you the color here so you can take a look at what it's going to look like. It's kind of an earth tone, cyan color, if you will. You can pass that around so everybody can take a peek at it. So that's essentially the building. And again, the front of the building is office area. The rear is garage space. One of the questions that we had, and I'm guessing that you may ask, is, are there any vehicles that are stored here overnight outside? And there are vehicles here that'll be associated with the particular use, and the vehicles are in the garage in the evening when they're not being used. All the vehicles are stored inside the building itself in the garage space. So there is nothing stored, no vehicles stored outside or parked overnight. So that is a basic overview of the application. Again, it's been reviewed by your staff. We believe we meet all your zoning requirements. We are providing some site lighting. If you want to go into that, we can. There is a full lighting plan that was submitted, and we have building-mounted lights, and we have pole-mounted lights, full mounts parking here, parking along the side, and then the rest are all building-mounted lights. They're all full cutoffs, and they meet your requirements in terms of not providing any spillover into the adjacent properties. So again, that's pretty much an overview of the application itself. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I have a question. In terms of what kind of finishes is the back storage area going to have? It's not clear. Is it going to be paved, or is it going to be, again, millings?
It's paved.
It's paved. Okay.
Fenced-in area?
Yes.
That'll be millings.
The fenced-in areas,
Yeah, the
millings?
fenced-in area will be millings.
Okay, millings.
Yeah.
Okay. So it'll be more or less this,
Bituminous.
bituminous, but you will put a base down because.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it won't just be on a gravel surface, whatever you encounter there.
Correct.
Because I guess, looking, just to address the sidewalk issue in terms of, my view of what is occurring, in terms of presently, there's a sidewalk that comes all the way up to just about where your property ends. And I think that what happens is that if you look at the grade on that east side of Taylor Road, it starts pitching up. So from the road, the grade starts pitching up so that it's nearly impossible to put a sidewalk into that grade unless you started taking a significant amount of the property owner's property away from them. So we have a little cottage down to the shore, and what they do down there is they have a sidewalk on one side of the street for a certain area, and then they put the sidewalk on the other side of the street, and they put a crosswalk between the two. And so that, you know, when people are walking down, they always at least have a sidewalk in where they can walk rather than having to walk in the street. Right now, what happens is that, you know, because of the topography of the existing area, it was impossible to put a sidewalk there only because they'd be taking the property owner's lands. So that in this case, it makes sense to just put a crosswalk across the street and have a sidewalk that continues up the rest of the road, because especially in the wintertime, when there is snow on the ground and there is no sidewalk, then obviously there's no path for anybody to walk. And if anybody is walking up Taylor Road, at least if there's a sidewalk, and potentially the next property is going to be developed also because of the fact that, again, there's always the potential for something to happen. So that if we keep that theme going, we can actually have a sidewalk for the entire Taylor Road rather than having this lapse of sidewalk in this particular area, recognizing that, you know, something could be done, and definitely to improve the current condition. And for at least the extended future, there's the possibility that it will connect to the sidewalks that occur, you know, when you reach Moody Road. So, and in that sense, I think I would be in favor of keeping the sidewalk on this side for that reason.
Without seeing a complete detailed sidewalk map on Taylor Road, and Rich answered most of it for me, I agree 100% with him. I mean, the point of the town is to have the developers put in the sidewalks, and then we fit in the pieces. He just explained why the town didn't put them in on the other side of the road. And this is 237 feet of sidewalk, and it helps connect Taylor Road, because Taylor Road has a lot of sidewalks down it. I mean, yes, they're sporadic in some spots, but this helps fill that in. So without seeing a detailed map of the sidewalks, I would not approve a waiver of the sidewalks, and I'm willing to postpone if the commission agrees, if you want to bring one in. But as of right now, I would say, no, I don't agree with the waiver also.
The one thing that I would add to Rich's comment, I went out and looked at this today. I didn't notice, and I don't know that I was specifically looking for it, the steep grades on the opposite side of the road that would prohibit a sidewalk from going in. We have very steep grades on this side of the road that's going to make it very difficult to install a sidewalk. The other comment that I would add to that is that the town, and when I say your police department, is not going to allow you to put a crosswalk in the middle of Taylor Road. Crosswalks go at intersections. They go at street intersections. You don't put crosswalks where there's no intersection. They're not going to let you do that. It's a big no-no, and it promotes people to jaywalk, if you will, and it's a safety hazard. So that's not going to happen. They would have a crosswalk at a street intersection. In this particular location, I think you'd be at Shaker Heights, probably might be the closest intersection, this particular location, where somebody could cross the road at an intersection and at a crosswalk. So I'd just like to add that if you end up deciding that you want this particular sidewalk in this location, I would urge you not to put in a condition of a crosswalk, because I don't think the police department's going to approve it.
No, again, I was not suggesting that we have you put a crosswalk there. I'm just saying that even if it's an imagined crosswalk, at least it gives a pedestrian some means of safety to be walking, especially during the wintertime when there's snow all everywhere, and all of a sudden they're traipsing along the edge of the road, and there's cars coming by where there's no protection at all. And I think that's what I was saying, is that, it obviously the area that I was referencing has a lot more pedestrian traffic, and but this still should have that kind of consideration.
So I would address the fact that you said on the east side, there's an issue with the topography sloping down, and conversely, it's the same on this side. So as Jay pointed out earlier, there is no curb. So during the middle of winter, That is all going to sheet flow onto the property. It's going to sit or stand on the concrete sidewalk, and it's going to freeze in the middle, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That is a big issue. I think that's a potential liability. So conversely, on the other side, it's the same problem. The question is, where do you put the sidewalk? And I understand that. It's just, there's no curb. So all the water from that street, when it's sunny out during the winter, is going to flow onto the sidewalk.
Well, I think, again, I think there's creative swales that could be, placed in there in terms of, you don't necessarily need a significant amount of something to divert water. You just need something to divert water occasionally. And typically, especially if you have a sidewalk that has a good granular base, any kind, again, if you get flow of water, any kind of granular base is going to act as a drain system itself. So that with a good granular base underneath the sidewalk, any water that's flowing is going to flow into that granular base because it's going to have a freer flow through that rather than on a sidewalk. So, as long as the sidewalk is above the grade and there's a good granular base underneath that sidewalk, the water has the natural tendency of flowing through something that it can flow through rather than on top of.
So you're going to push the water more south, and it's going to end up in the driveway.
No.
Well, if it's above.
No. I'm saying if you look at the cross section of your sidewalk, in terms of if you start off with a good base where it's just not ordinary dirt, if you start off with a granular base, a 3/4 inch trap rock or something, or some kind of a processed stone. So basically, that's like a sieve in terms of it just allows water to flow through that, and then you put your sidewalk on top of that. So if you establish a good base and the good base is porous, it'll allow that water to flow. So in that sense, I think that as long as you maintain, and again, I'm sure we have regulations of sidewalks as to what the requirements are. So, and in this condition, you could either, follow those, recommendations, or you can enhance it a little bit and not create the kind of conditions that you're saying if it's going to be a liability for you. So, and again, I think that it's always, something that you have to consider, what's best for you, but we have to consider what's best for us, too.
Oh,
So.
it's a mutual agreement.
Correct.
And that's understood.
That's right. But I think that there are ways to do it in terms of it.
I'm sure there is, and I'm
Right.
respective of the cost. But I think it'll increase the sheet flow into the driveway and also increase the sheet flow onto the property and underneath to potentially have a wash away for some of the shrubs as well, too. Because there's a tremendous amount of water that's going to be flowing across
Well,
the
the
street.
thing is, it's going to be the same amount of water. We're not going to increase the amount of water that's flowing there. Because we're saying it's sheet flow there right now.
Correct.
So basically, it will maintain sheet flow. It's just that instead of flowing on top of the ground, it goes underneath this granular base that's underneath the sidewalk, and it flows out the other side as a sheet. It doesn't get collected into a pipe
No,
or
I know
anything.
that. I understand that.
Okay, so-
I'm just,
all right.
I think there's a potential there to wash away some of the items. And I don't think the sidewalk's going to be 8 inches above the grade. I don't think that's too conducive, that's all.
Well, again, I agree with Commissioner Suzak, and it's really not our place to design the sidewalks.
Understood.
But you designed the driveway to keep a good flow and keep the ice off of it. I know in my neighborhood, I have completely flat sidewalks with no hill on either side going either direction, and I still get freeze overs at 4 o'clock in the afternoon like every other sidewalk. It's maintenance. And, like I said, without seeing a complete detailed map, and Commissioner Suzak did a better job of presenting what's on Taylor Road than you guys did, I'm going off of him unless you want to bring something in next meeting. But at this point, I agree with him. There are sidewalks there. There is no hardship, and it meets the regulation for sidewalks. So I'm not going to help you design them or even come up with an idea to design them. I think you guys are more than capable to do that. But like I said, I'm willing to listen if you want to postpone and bring in a detailed map of Taylor Road. But he's pretty clear, and I know across the street there are sidewalks. I do agree with you about no crosswalks. But, I mean, it's not a far distance from each intersection through your property for the town to add in, or the next property owner who decides to develop next to you to do it, and the problem's solved. But this is the first step of getting sidewalks continuous down Taylor Road, and that's what our regulation was made for, so.
You're right.
Again,
You're
I
right
agree
on
with
that.
Commissioner Suzak.
Okay, anyone else? My left, anyone else on the right? And I'll open it to, if you are done at the desk.
I have nothing else to add at this point.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak in favor or against this application? Anyone in the audience would like to speak in favor or against the application? Last call to speak in favor or against the application. Any reason to keep it open other than you said, okay, then I'll close the public hearing. 29:54.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the resolution to approve public hearing 2954, dated October 10th, as prepared by the Planning Department, with the 31 conditions indicated?
Is one of the conditions the waiver of the sidewalks?
No,
No.
no.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, or anything from the desk? No. All in favor? Sorry. 700.
No, one is-
Any opposed?
one-
No abstentions? Okay. 700.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Okay. Let's continue. Let me get my sheet here. Public hearing. Other than anything, other business? Hearing none, there was no correspondence that I had unless some of you did. Okay. Director of Planning report? None? Item, I'm sorry. What?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, our report would really be what's being received right now, and that next week, staff will be at the Southern New England American Planning Association Conference on Thursday and Friday. So we look forward to that.
What was that? So we aren't having a meeting? Oh, that's good.
Meeting and they canceled it.
That's what I, yeah, oh, they canceled that?
Canceled it, yeah.
No, oh, I don't.
It's just a courtesy
Oh,
announcement.
We were supposed to have that Thursday meeting, and it's canceled. How'd you find out? On the computer?
Oh, the Economic Development Breakfast has been moved to November 15th?
Oh,
November 15th.
how's that? Okay.
It was an email or something.
Yeah, that's because I don't go on my computer that often. Okay, applications to be received. Now, this is
Authorization 13, authorization.
authorization, okay, I'm sorry. Authorization 13, 157 Moody Road.
Yeah, so basically, they just want to put in a concrete pad for equipment outside. I guess the equipment was originally stored inside the building, but it posed a fire hazard, so they need to move it outside the building for a wastewater disposal unit at 157 Moody Road. It was approved by Wetlands, so now it's here for administrative approval.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we allow for administrative approval for the concrete pad to be placed at 157 Moody Road. Site plan review 1791.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? No abstentions, unanimous. Oh, applications to be received.
We added that one.
Okay, yes, right. We added to the agenda 130 Elm Street. This is administrative approval request for right in, right out curb on Elm Street, the Freshwater MZL LLC owner, Stan Glatz, the applicant. And it gives, it's a business regional zone.
So we held a meeting with the applicant on Monday and with Lori. And the applicant, at their request, as you can see in the emails, requested to see if we can get administrative approval, or if you guys prefer a site plan review. What they're proposing is a right in and right out curb cut along Elm Street. And according to their narrative that they provided to us, they project that 50% of the entering traffic will be from Elm Street, and the site will be utilized that way, and 50% will be exiting. Accordingly, the property is currently served by 5 driveways, 4 to Freshwater Boulevard, 1 to Elm Street. The current driveway proposal is to provide a new right turn only driveway to and from Elm Street, located approximately 275 feet east of Elm Street, westbound painted stop bar at Freshwater Boulevard. The driveway will also provide 24 feet of pavement with a single 12-foot lane each for entering and exiting traffic. Based on the projections of the proposed site driveway, this curb cut would accommodate 57,141 and 198 entering vehicles and 28,094 and 123 exiting vehicles. They also stated that their traffic was based on the Elm Street files for the retail development known as the Shops at Elm Street Square. And then ultimately, they will be seeking an encroachment permit from OSTA if you guys were amenable to a curb cut.
Mr. Chair, I think that this is kind of a major alteration to that area, and I don't think that, administratively, we should allow our staff to take on that kind of responsibility to, make all the determinations as to what's allowable and what's not allowable. I would make a motion that we deny the request for administrative review for this particular project and have them come before us so that the entire, commission could look at it and make a determination as to whether it's in the best interest of the town or whether there's another possibility to do something another way.
I agree with Rich and what he's saying, and mainly because you're looking at this right near another intersection, a major one, and you've got, the impact can be pretty major, and I'm concerned about doing this administratively, that we need to have them come before us.
Also, if you recall, on the drawing board, that's already been approved is a development across the street, right at the light, the Terranos property. So I think we've got to have it in here.
Refresh my memory. At what point does the State Department of Transportation, their role fit into this? Would that be before it comes to us or after?
It's after.
Yeah, it's after. They always require local approvals first.
Thank you.
Okay.
After the extensive discussion we had about the traffic pattern when we approved Panera Bread, there are issues in that plaza. We all know it, and they know it. And I think with them coming forward to us presenting a detailed traffic plan, it could help alleviate, or it might make things worse. So I agree with Commissioner Suzak that I do believe it should come in front of us for some more very detailed explanation of what the point is.
Anyone else? Okay, so your motion was seconded. I don't.
Hasn't been.
You already made a
You already
motion?
made one. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't make a motion.
You did? I thought you did.
Yeah, you seconded it.
Ooh.
Said she agreed.
So it's on the table. Its motion's made and seconded. And we've had the discussion. So all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Oh, one opposed?
No, we're not opposed to it. We're gonna have them come to us.
The motion was to deny administrative approval.
then it's 700.
Reverse voting here again.
Yeah, well, that's how we have to do. Thank you. And we got, we done?
So we have the three applications to be received as listed. Leah Honda's coming back with a request for a car wash. 651 Enfield Street is an application to expand a building over there. And then 125 and 135 Hazard Avenue are lots 69 and 70 for the construction of 2 medical office buildings. They received wetlands approval, I think, about a year ago. And so now they're ready to move forward. And there's actually a few other applications that we've received in the office this week as well.
So
So
you got 20 Palumba Drive, 651 Enfield Street. And Hazard Avenue.
yep, and I think there's.
You ready? I mean, they've got their act together?
Yes, yep,
All right.
yep.
Then we can go with them. I think we're cleared out pretty near everything else.
Yeah, we only have 28 Maple.
I'm sorry?
Right here.
We only got 28 Maple
Yeah,
Ave continued.
Continue to this next one.
Well, I don't know how long that'll take. Yeah, that's true. But these, well, that's all right. Okay, we'll put them on next time.
All right.
Any unresolved issues or anything you want to bring up? Do your thing.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded.
Everybody
All in
vote no.
favor? All in favor? Kenny's not in favor? Nick's not in favor?
I don't spend enough time with you guys, you know?
We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm surprised that we, what is it, quarter? Yes, we are.
Yeah, it started at 8:20 too. We'll make it home before the first.